In Argentina, it's one of the countries with the highest inflation. So we have 100% inflation. That means that there's no credit. It's impossible to buy real estate. It's so unstable over there that when you do real estate transactions, you do it in cash. But I don't mean cash like you buy the property in full. You actually have to bring the cash. You have to count the US dollars, the $100 bills, like in an episode of Narcos.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Learn Like a CPA show. I'm your host, Ryan Bakey, and today we have a guest on, Federico Zimmerman. And Freddie, we call it Feddy. Yeah. People call you Feddy for short. So he has an awesome story, and he was kind of telling me a little bit about it the other day. And he immigrated from Argentina, and kind of tell us the story of the opportunity that you had there versus here, and kind of what you could do there versus what you could do here, and just kind of give us the background behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Born and raised in Argentina. Lived there all my life until I moved a year ago to America. So worked 10 years for an American company, but based in Argentina with an Argentinian salary. There was rough because it's one of the countries with the highest inflation.
Yeah.
So we have
like 600% inflation.
100% inflation. That means that there's no credit because basically interest rates have to beat the inflation. So they're 120% a year.
Oh, they don't loan money then?
They don't. No. It's impossible to buy real estate. It's impossible to do anything. Plus, your salary gets, like, because that inflation also affects the currency exchange, every year in US dollars, you're more poor. So it makes it really tough.
Versus the opportunity that's here, like the dollar is pretty stable, so you're actually able to borrow money and pay it back at a higher interest rate.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's the opportunity that you have here. Investment opportunities, just to give you an idea, it's so unstable over there that when you do real estate transactions, you do it in cash. But I don't mean cash like you buy the property in full. You actually have to bring the cash to an office. You have to count the US dollars, the $100 bills, like in an episode of Narcos, just to do a real estate transaction.
Well, and I think it's really hard for entrepreneurs to succeed there because anybody that's been successful has probably had to take a lot of risk. And one of the simplest forms of risk is just borrowing money to start something. And if you can't borrow money, what about the education system there?
It's pretty good. The crazy part is that it was a country that was growing pretty well until the 90s. We have ups and downs. It's just it went really bad in the last 2 decades. But it's a crazy place, and that's actually because I do property management. That's where I get all of my team. We call it BAs, but they're more than BAs. Because the dollar goes a really long way, but over there you have people that speak great English. It's like the #1 country with the best English in all Latin America. And most of the people have a college degree.
Argentina?
Yeah.
So how many properties were you managing when you were living there?
So I grew the company when I was living there up to 73 units with a partner. We parted ways back in August last year when I was already here in America, and I started again. I have 43. But yeah, when I started managing from there, we grew from 0 to 73.
It was 73 units in Argentina?
No, here in America. I was managing remotely.
People get scared to manage remote out of state, and if I live in California and I have a property in the Smokies or Florida, but you've managed from a different country.
5,000 miles away.
Yeah. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, it was a lot of sweat and tears and developing SOPs. So it pushed me to develop those systems because I had no other way around it. I couldn't jump in a car and drive to the property to fix something. So I had to find ways to communicate and find local people. And the fact that I grew to 73 units in means that I was doing something right because clients were coming to us from word of mouth. So yeah, it was just creating policies, procedures, applying those with local teams.
Wow. And what's kind of changed since when did you come to America?
November 2022.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what's kind of changed? Did your perception of America change from then till now?
I will say yes. Something that's funny. I've been to America multiple times before moving here, but once you get to live here and actually experience what the houses are, I will say the way that things are built here is differently from other countries where we use concrete or more wet building, I think they call it. And here's more dry building. So just understanding the nuances of the properties is something that, especially if you hire abroad, if you have people, I know a lot of people hire in the Philippines, in India, something that I make sure that I do with my team is they understand how American homes are different from anywhere in the world. Because you may not know this, but there are a few countries where you have dishwashers, dryers, and garbage disposals in every home. That's not very common. In many countries, you don't have it, or it's a luxury. So most of your team are not going to be familiar with that. And if you need to troubleshoot, again, from 5,000 miles away, someone that's having issues with a garbage disposal or a dishwasher, they need to understand how those things work.
What are some of the best like SOPs or systems that you've created that everybody should create?
It really depends on how you're scaling. I make sure that we are in constant communication with cleaners. So I create what I like to call safety nets. So we use Turno, for example, for scheduling the cleaners. We still remind them every morning of their schedule, so they don't have any my app didn't work type of thing. Making sure they actually arrive to the property, and by 2 p.m. making sure that all the property is either clean or almost ready. Because sometimes cleaners they say, okay, I'm gonna push this one for later. So if it's not gonna be ready by check-in time, and we get a last-minute booking, it's gonna be a problem. So we just close the calendar, right? But having that communication with cleaners is super important, and then just defining how you're gonna deal with different policies that in the beginning you play by ear. Early check-ins, like checkouts, pets, extra guests. Once you start scaling, you cannot just evaluate each scenario by case. You need to have a policy that you can apply and replicate in every single state.
What's been the biggest lesson so far, if you had to pick one?
That's a really good question. I'll say that hard work is rewarded in America. So that's the number one thing. Maybe it's not related exactly to property management, but it's just coming here and working hard, you're gonna get a reward. Where I come from, you can work really, really hard and you will never see a reward.
And what's your number one tip or skill for new investors?
For new investors, really understand the importance of the experience economy. Specific to short-term rentals, I think that what our guests are looking for is experience, is creating memories. So in order to maximize your return on investment, you really need to make sure that you're catering for people who are going to build memories in your property and want to return, and that's going to just compound. That's number one. And number two, I will say is...
Hey guys, just wanted to interrupt the podcast today to let you know about my Facebook group, Tax Strategies for Real Estate Investors. We have over 6,300 real estate investors in the community actively engaging every single day. You're going to learn all my top tips. You're going to get to network with other professionals, and you're going to get to see all the past recordings and all the past posts in that Facebook group. So make sure you join today. It's going to be linked in the podcast below. And now back to the show.
And number two, I will say is also understanding that the industry is pushing us host towards consistency. If you look at every change that Airbnb and even VRBO makes in the platforms, they push for the same thing, consistency. So you need to be consistent with every single stay, with your cleaning, with the amenities you provide, and you're gonna thrive. The time that you start failing, they're gonna just push you out of the algorithm.
That's actually why I only stay at Airbnbs the people that I know, because I know, well, to some extent it'll be somewhat consistent. But I think for a while, that's why people like hotels a little bit better, because they are normally more consistent than Airbnbs. Right. You'll never know what you're going to get. So that's why I only stay at host places that I know.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Where can listeners of the podcast find you and information about you?
Yeah, so my handle on Twitter and Instagram is STR Guide.
STR Guide?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I need to grow a little bit on Facebook and other social media, also TikTok, but I'm mostly active in Instagram right now.
Okay, so that's at STR Guide?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.